All right, hi, and welcome to part 2 of my multi-part series, How I Was Reborn on the 4th of July, named after my first book, which received a Publisher's Weekly Starred Review and published by University Press in 2012. Reborn on the 4th of July, The Challenge of Faith, Patriotism, and Conscience. You can see the URL up there. In my last part, I talked about my military service. In this part, I'm going to talk about the end of my service. But you'll notice I mentioned very briefly in my first part that I applied to be a non-combatant conscientious objector. What happened was, as I mentioned, I began reading a Bible in Iraq and out of boredom. And I got back and I was really wanting to ultimately not be a hypocrite. I wanted to either really know what I was saying when I was telling people I was a Christian and to believe it, or I just wanted to put it behind me and stop claiming things that I didn't need to be claiming. And in April of 2006, we were getting ready to deploy what would have been my second time. I was sitting on a bus ready to go to Hickam, the airfield on Oahu, to fly to the National Training Center in California for another pre-deployment training. I was sitting on the bus listening to some Christian music, and I just had this epiphany, this vision of me in uniform but without a weapon in what looked like the Middle East. And I wrote down some notes and I talked with one of my battle buddies, and that was the moment that I realized I would apply to be a non-combatant. And I eventually put in my formal application sometime in May or June of 2006. And then I had been talking to a pastor friend of mine who did some ministry at Manoa, University of Hawaii, Manoa. And he said, "Oh, yeah, you want to be baptized? I can baptize you at this barbecue next week." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." It just didn't occur to me that it was going to be July 4th. So July 4th, I go to this barbecue. We watch the fireworks. And they do full immersion. I'm leaned back underwater, and I come up, and Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the fireworks have been over for some time, but as soon as I come out of the water, I feel the water fall off my face, and I open my eyes and I see a bunch of other fireworks going off, and that I took to be kind of like a wink and a nod from God, like that I'd done the right thing by being baptized and by taking a stand for my faith in the situation I found myself in, which was an artilleryman. I asked to be given the opportunity to not carry a weapon and to change jobs. However, because I was in a new unit, they didn't believe me, and they thought that I was just trying to get out, and it was all a contrived story. And so one thing led to another. My command basically disowned me and pushed me to another headquarters unit, and my unit deployed in August of 2006, and we lost 11 service members to a helicopter crash, including my XO, who was the only person in my unit who didn't, take every opportunity he had to demean me because everybody thought I was a coward trying to get out of a deployment. And as soon as I got out, by then I had made arrangements to go to Israel and Palestine with Christian Peacemaker Teams. And when I was there in Palestine with Palestinian families, seeing a developed nation occupy a less developed nation felt very similar. It felt like me going back to Iraq and listening to Iraqis talk about Americans the way Palestinians talked about Israelis. And one night I was sitting on a roof, and earlier that day we had gone through an Israeli Defense Forces patrol in Hebron. And I was really angry at the patrol, at the soldiers on patrol. And what was going through my mind was, oh, they're really, their weapons are kind of slung over their shoulder haphazardly. One guy had his helmet strap undone. And I had some misdirected anger. And I realized through talking with other people on the trip that I had seen myself in the IDF patrol, and I felt those same feelings of naivete, and of being used and of being not entirely aware of what the moral landscape was that I was going through. I put that all on these IDF soldiers, and I realized I had some unresolved feelings of my own about myself and my own participation in war. That is, in a nutshell, how I got out of the military. I was ready to remain in. I expected to be stop-lossed and deployed without a weapon, because that has happened before, both in our own time with people like Aiden Delgado, but also I was well before Hacksaw Ridge came out as a movie. I was already aware of Desmond Doss and his Medal of Honor during World War II, and then also 2 Medal of Honor winners who were conscientious objectors in Vietnam, Thomas Bennett and Joseph LaPointe. Bennett was even in Bravo 1st to the 14th, which I deployed with to Iraq. So the history of objection and nonviolent or unarmed military service was not new to me. In my next part, I'll talk about the circles that I found myself in as a result of that application to be a non-combatant. But you can learn more by going to reborn4thjuly.com. I'll put it up right there, where you can order the book. You can listen to the first movement of the book of 5 movements, and stay tuned and like and follow to hear the next part 3.